Is about the Olympics. The Tokyo Games are just a few months away, but with COVID cases surging in Japan, there are now some concerns. 15,000 athletes will be in attendance, thousands of staff members, and now some Canadian doctors are warning that without mandatory quarantine and vaccines, outbreaks are likely to occur. So there are some people who think that the Games should just be canceled. Pascal, what do you think?
For me, I think obviously, I think safety is the most important thing, and I feel like as long as it's safe, I think and people should play. But if it's not risk it. And I think for me, just going through the experience with preparing to, going to the bubble or even preparing this season, and just all the different challenges that you have and all the protocols and making sure that we get tested every day, and I think it's so important. And for me, just being able to do that, I know and I understand it, and so it's like if it's safe, do it. If not, I think we should just kind of chill on that.
Yeah, and Pascal, can you talk about how what athletes think in terms of if you're an Olympic athlete, you're going to compete against the best in the world, right? And if there's a chance that some athletes from some countries won't be there, does that gold medal, does that win mean the same thing if, the top-ranked team or the top-ranked swimmer isn't in the pool and you're the athlete that wins the gold? Like, what's your mindset there?
I just think that the work is the same. Like, I feel like, people put a lot of sacrifices into, at least athletes, we put a lot of sacrifices into what we do. Obviously, it's unfortunate if there's people or all the athletes that's not being able to be present, but I feel like the work is the same and we go through so much to achieve, and achievement is an achievement. So as long as you put the work in and you go out there and you win, and I just feel like it should always count, and it's always exciting, obviously, having something that you worked so hard for and achieving it.
What's so wild is that clearly, we are not professional athletes, but you are, Pascal, because I come at this not from the athletic perspective, but from a spectator. And even though I love watching sport, I love watching the Raptors, I loved watching you last night, P.S., but I also love watching elite athletes do their best. But for me, I just think, are they going to be safe doing it like you said, Pascal? And I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here, but Tokyo just declared another state of emergency, and their cases are all of a sudden surging just before the Olympics. And so my fear is they're not requiring athletes to be vaccinated to participate. They're not doing the 14-day quarantine upon arrival. We've heard the stories about athletes' villages and what happens there. I'm not even thinking about the competition. I'm thinking about all the activity that surrounds the Olympics before the actual games begin. And that's where my head goes. Can you keep that safe?
Well, and you mentioned vaccines, Mel, and that's where my brain went to, too. If they're not mandating that, isn't that an inequity? And actually, Pascal, I'm curious what you think about that. Because, the Americans, for example, undoubtedly will vaccinate all of their athletes and send them there. But imagine if in Canada right now, with the state of our vaccines, if suddenly they became a priority group, I think people would be outraged. I don't think that can happen. So if you send Canadian athletes who are competing alongside American athletes, isn't that sort of just setting up a bit of a possible inequity right from the get-go?
Yeah.
I think that's possible. Again, like you guys said, I think the vaccine part of it is going to be a problem, and I don't know how comfortable different teams or feel or governments feel about vaccines and things like that. So it's going to be pretty hard, and that's why for me I think it's just, again, they always come down to safety, and we know that we're going through crazy things right now, and that should be our first priority. I understand the business and the money and everything around, but I think safety should be the first thing that we really care about.
Pascal, you mentioned the money, and that came to my mind, too, this morning when I was reading a news website, and the headline was, experts are doubting that they can hold these Olympics safely. And then right above that headline is a banner advertising the Olympics. So yeah, a lot of money is at stake. And I saw a tweet go across our screen about go across our screens saying that it might not be safe and it's not going to be fair for the athletes. And I get that. It's not going to be fair for the athletes. It's not going to be fair for investors, for the people who have put all their time and effort into doing this. But COVID doesn't have a moral compass. You know what I mean? Like, it hasn't been fair to anyone.
Yeah. Christella on Facebook raised an interesting idea, which is that if the film industry can run with testing and isolation and protocols in place, so can many others. It'll be expensive, but worth it. Those athletes may age out or get pushed out by another cohort in 4 years from now. I mean, that's the saddest thing, is that, as Pascal mentioned, like, these are top elite athletes who are at the top of their game, and age really does matter very quickly. I mean, and that is a good point. If they could do it the way film companies are doing it, I mean, as far as I know, there's been no outbreaks on film sets. They just maybe need Tom Cruise to come along and yell at any people. Remember? He did that.
It's a good point.
Tom Cruise
It's a good point.
That's the thing. If Tom Cruise pays for it.
It is a good point. And you know, when we talk about it being unfair to athletes, let me just get to Kimmy B on Twitter, okay? So Kimmy B says, unfair to athletes? Oh, please. Everyone wants to get back to some kind of normalcy. However, why would they be any more important? I would love to have a proper family gathering with my family, who I know have been following all precautions, but I can't. So no, sorry. And Kimmy, I get that sentiment. Of course, everybody, you know, all of us, we miss our families, we miss our lives. I think, though, sometimes when we think about athletes, we think of like the marquee athletes, the Pascal Siakams, right? But you know, when you really boil down to it, most Olympic athletes are not like high profile, like Pascal, Michael Phelps. Most of them can't pay their rent. Financially, they have sunk a lot into this window where athletically they peak. They have to take out loans. They've taken out mortgages. And so it's not just about, I want to go, you know, I want to win a gold medal. It's about like investing 10, 12, 16 years of money and other people's money, your family members, into something, and then it disappears. That window closes. So I understand an attitude about like, oh, please, athletes, but remember, most Olympians are actually not the Michael Phelps of the world. They're regular everyday people who actually have serious financial concerns, and they're counting on the Olympics.